This morning we're at lesson 6 on making disciples. This is more or less the halfway mark, and our lesson is on the cost effectiveness of a new disciple. We have completed 6 lessons, and we have only 6 more for us to go. And if you do not remember anything from this series, do not forget this lesson, because I think this is most important. I think we understand the meaning of cost effectiveness, meaning that the amount of work, money, and time that we put into an effort reaps the best results and effectiveness. Our late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew used to say that the most cost-effective project that Singapore has ever embarked into is in planting trees to make Singapore a garden city. Something that brings forth tremendous results from the efforts that is put in. And I want to go on record this morning by saying that nothing benefits a congregation as much as training a new disciple. Somehow, along the way, churches have forgotten it, and churches do not do it. And when we stop doing this, we see the effects of not training a new disciple. This is so important because a growing church needs new blood. And where there is no new blood, things fall into a rut and become stale. And I'm beginning to observe a little bit of this in our small groups. Those care teams that are open, they are full of life, welcoming new people in all the time. And those who are picky, those who are more or less having a fixed number of same members, they are quite stuffy, and I predict that sooner or later that they will lose not only the original purpose of growing and multiplying, but also that their particular care teams will not be able to have the kind of vibrancy that is needed because there is no new blood. Christ says that the Son of Man come to seek and save those which are lost. And this is something that the church does all the time. Acts chapter 5, the believers were the more added to the Lord, multitudes, both men and women. And Ephesians 6:4, zooming into the families, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but to bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So very important to admonish our children and build up faith. Also, I think as we look into this matter of new blood, that we need to treasure our visitors and our prospects which are not in Christ Jesus. James already mentioned the fact that if people come to your assembly, do not show partiality. And sometimes, even though we may not be guilty of doing this, that we have a tendency to not welcome our visitors in the way that we should, even though this is our Father's house. But we are so engrossed with our other friends and members that a visitor would walk into our assembly and walk out without even we realizing that these people are here, and that we do not take time to speak to them, to sit next to them, and to welcome them warmly, because so very important. Matthew chapter 23 talks about the scribes and the Pharisees that put in a lot of effort to proselyte other people that are not Jews into their religion. But when they finally came into the faith, instead of helping them in their comfort zone and in getting into the heart of the matter, they put upon them rules, regulations, and made them twice the child of the devil. And in Acts chapter 9, verse 3, God called on a preacher, Ananias, to go to a prospect, Saul of Tarsus. And the first thing that comes to this preacher's mind is that he's afraid because of his reputation. And we may not be afraid of our visitors or our prospects, but there are 101 reasons that we give to ourselves why we are not reaching out and why we are not trying to help visitors find a place at our worship. So let's treasure our visitors, because visitors and new disciples, they are eager to learn. Have you ever tried to teach old dogs new tricks? Have you ever tried to get old members to join a care team or do something out of their comfort zone? Very, very difficult to motivate older members. But new disciples, and also especially visitors, they are eager to learn. And this is really cost effective. Ecclesiastes tells us to remember our Creator in the days of our youth, because there will be a time when we get older and when we are not so interested, and that we will say, I have no pleasure in them. Matthew 11, Jesus calls upon us to go to Him and learn of Him. And Acts chapter 17, verse 11, the Bible emphasizes that those Christians at Berea, they are more noble. Why? Because they search the Scriptures diligently. So very important for all of us to learn and for us to understand that visitors and new disciples are eager to do it. Also, when we concentrate on new disciples and visitors for that matter, these people have many friends who are not Christians and unconverted. I think after a while, when you become a Christian, a good number of your friends are Christians, which in itself is not a bad thing. But when you focus on new disciples, then you get more people that you can reach out with the gospel. In John chapter 4, the Samaritan woman in the well. So many of us will think that she may not be a good prospect for Christ. But Christ saw in her many friends who are also searching like her. And maybe some of your friends are this way. In Acts chapter 10, verse 24, the Roman centurion who was waiting for the arrival of Peter already invited many of his friends that they may come and hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this is the payoff when you concentrate on new members. Also, in Acts chapter 16, we learn that the Philippian jailer, when he understood that Paul and Silas were not like any other man, even in the middle of the night, he got his family to hear the preaching of Paul and Silas and were baptized on the same hour of the night. New disciples have many unconverted prospects. And so let me close this morning session by suggesting some ways that we can train disciples. The key is to ensure that they are initiated in the small group, because when you transplant a new disciple from his former ways and put him into the church, he's like a fish out of water, and he needs people that he can refer to, people that will encourage him, and people that will help him grow in faith. If a new disciple does not have some people to turn to, it is like, as Choyam mentions, giving birth to a baby and leaving the baby outside the house to fend for itself. That could not be done. Also, it is important that this new disciple know what to do. Sometimes we assume that since this new disciple has been coming to church, he will pick up all those things that are needed. But a systematic course, as suggested in previous lessons, will be very helpful. So I do encourage that if there's no class, you go through this person on the one-to-one basis. And if there's a class, even better, because they can find encouragement and they can ask questions. A lot of things that you see the Apostle Paul doing is that he has been taking people like Mark and Onesimus and Luke and other Christians with him when he is doing his services to the Lord. If you're going to visit someone in hospital or going to pay a visit to a member that has not been as regular, it will be good to try to involve new converts, or helping to teach one-on-one or children's Bible class. Sometimes we learn best by learning. Here are some discussion responses that is submitted by Lee May's discussion group. New converts to be assigned buddies who will send them the Bible correspondence course and mark their work. And also to invite new converts to meals or to care team, or simply to find time to talk to these people. It should not be the job of the church leaders alone. One thing I like to mention is the church camp. It's a wonderful way to get to know other members of the church. When I see a visitor sign up for the church camp, I can almost predict that soon after the church camp, that they will praise membership, or a new convert, that they will be familiar with more than just a few members, but they will know more members by name. And also, if you have children, it is so important that your children attend Bible camp. It is easy for them to be distracted to schoolwork, extramural activities, but it is in church camp that your children will find the foundation, even little children. So give the church camp your priority, because we put a lot of work in every church camp. And church camp would be what I would call cost effectiveness. You go on vacation, you save money, you bond with your family, all kinds of good stuff. Okay, for today's discussion question, do you agree that training a new disciple is the most cost-effective work of the church? What are the other cost-effective activities? Church camp is actually not cheap. I think the church spends thousands and thousands of dollars in subsidy, but it is cost-effective because of the results and because of the good that it will do. And secondly, are there new disciples or inactive members that needs to be trained at PP? Can you list some? Will you reach out to one of them this week? I'm going to give you a shorter time for discussion, because at 10:20, the Filipino Fellowship and Friends will come up to the stage and sing a song for our mothers and present them with some paper roses. Please go into your discussion groups.